Hi everyone, happy belated National Coming Out Day. It's good to be back at Head Royce, if even only on a screen. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Larry. I graduated last year, class of 2018, and I'm currently a first year at Harvard. So, I was asked to make this video to talk a little bit about my own coming out story and how that relates to Head Royce. This is, I think, the first time I will have told this story in a more formal setting, so here goes nothing. There's a relatively long and theoretical explanation for why I would choose terminologically to identify as pansexual and genderqueer, all relating to some of my broader thoughts about language, labels, and identity, but I'm not going to bore you with that. For simplicity's sake, I'll just say that I am a guy who's into other guys. I first came to terms with my sexuality somewhere in the middle of the 8th grade. It was a terrible time, tumultuous time. No one likes middle school, and trying to get a grip on understanding this whole gay thing certainly didn't help. But long story short, on one tear-filled night over the apparently now antiquated Facebook Messenger, I was talking to one of my best friends about all the feels and thoughts, and you might say I officially came out to her as gay. I will note that even now, that phrase is kind of weird for me to say. I'm gay. It's not a phrase that rolls off the tongue easily for me. No matter how comfortable I might say I am now with my sexuality and identity, it carries a lot of societal weight, but it also carries a lot of personal baggage for me. One thing y'all might not know is that I'm not out to any of my family. They're not the most open to the idea of gay people. And you might be thinking, so, like, what's the most explicit thing they've said to indicate to you that they wouldn't be cool with it if you came out to them? And, they've, like, thrown around some things here and there, and that has given me enough reason to not stick around long enough to find out. One thing many of y'all might actually know is that I was pretty out at Head Royce. My sexuality wasn't something I really tried to hide, so I have come to be what I consider quite good at code switching, navigating what spaces where I can be queer, where I can not be sort of around the house. I don't know when or if I'll ever come out to my family, but that's sort of where I am with that, which might be surprising for some of y'all who knew me in high school. But, Head Royce was actually not somewhere I ever had the intention of coming out either. I figured it would be a welcoming place for LGBTQ identities, but I had never made plans to embrace queerness at Head Royce. In fact, in hindsight, I'm not sure if I ever actually had to even let out that awkward phrase, I'm gay. During my time at Head Royce, if I'm remembering correctly, everyone kind of just assumed. It's not a tough call. I can be rather flamboyant or stereotypical of a figure at times. My voice is pitched pretty high. I get called ma'am on the phone all the time. But that's also weird for me to think about, though. Perhaps comforting at the time it was to just let everyone assume. It got around my needing to talk about it, to talk about myself. I knew what everyone was thinking, and I sort of just let it happen. But, I think I got lucky. I let everyone assume, and it went in my favor. It's almost always easier to not establish your identity to a crowd by yourself, to not have to do the talking. It takes guts to be that vulnerable. It was guts that I didn't have. But it doesn't go that well for everyone, and if there's one thing I've learned in just my first half semester in college, it's that you get a lot more from listening to people tell their stories than from assuming their story. Some of you may be looking at this assembly and other presentations like this by affinity groups, advocacy groups, etc. You may be looking for answers from these presentations. I definitely remember that I always did, and I always was a little frustrated at the end if I felt like there wasn't something clear coming through, like answers to the hard questions. How do I be a better ally? What's the problem? How do we fix it? Tell me what I should do instead. And I think that the older I get, the more I realize and sympathize with the lack of answers. The more I realize that there aren't really answers to be had in the first place. But to sort of end my spiel in this video, I think that we all might be one step closer to finding the answers we seek if we just spend more time listening, not asking or telling, just listening. There are more stories to be told than you can fathom, and I, for one, am ready to take a backseat and just start listening. And I think if if you're looking for something to take out of this presentation, something at least somewhat close to concrete, I would say take a moment to pause. Head Royce is a busy place. It's a very busy place, and I know that I wish I spent more time for myself to sit back, spend quality time with people, and just listen. And that's something I definitely intend on doing now, from now on, and just thinking about my past here at Head Royce. I feel like that would have definitely helped make everything a lot clearer. So that's all from me. Happy National Coming Out Day, everyone.